Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We're continuing our Big 12 football predictions today with our next team, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Cliff Kingsbury is going into his 5th year at Texas Tech this season, and I really feel this is a make-or-break season for him. I think he's on the hot seat. In 2013, he got Texas Tech to a bowl game, missed out in 2014, got him back to a bowl in 2015, and then just missed out last year with a 5-7 record. And he really, in my opinion, cannot afford to miss another bowl game because he went 8-5 the year they made the bowl and 7-6, but then he went 4-8 and 5-7. And the defense has just been horrendous. We know he can provide a very strong offense. We saw that led by Patrick Mahomes, who got taken early on in the NFL draft. Now they're led by Nick Shymanek at quarterback, who I think is going to do a great job. The defense is definitely the issue, and they really need to straighten that out. They have 6 returning starters this season from a team that allowed 40 or more points 8 times last season. It's really difficult to win football games when you're allowing that many points. Last year, like I said, they finished 5-7. I think the defense will improve a little bit. They have Zach Barnes, the senior, at defensive end, and Deshaun Johnson at free safety. So I'm hoping they can really get that defense together and work some stuff out, and hopefully get the Red Raiders back to a bowl game. Obviously, they need to stop the run more than anything. That was their problem last season. As I've said before, the offense is going to be great. Defense is the problem. If they can fix a few things on defense, I think they'll return to a bowl. But let's see how they're going to do this season. They opened up the season against Eastern Washington, one of the better FCS teams. We've seen them beat some teams like Washington State. They were also the home of Vernon Adams, the former Oregon quarterback. I know he wasn't a star or anything at Oregon, but still, they're usually pretty tough. But I'm not concerned about that. Texas Tech will get the win. And then, unfortunately for Texas Tech, they get a bye week in their second week of the season. That means they have to play 11 straight games with no break. So it's going to be very tough for them. So they get the bye week going into one of their bigger games, playing another Power 5 conference opponent in Arizona State. If you remember last year, they traveled down to Arizona State and lost that game in a shootout, 68-55. This year, Arizona State comes back to Texas Tech, and I think this is going to be another shootout. I really do. I think both teams are going to be able to put up a lot of points because both teams have very good offenses. But with it being at home, with this being could be a major win, it could determine if they go to a bowl game or not. I'm going to give Texas Tech the win here. I could see this being a night game down in Lubbock. It's going to be, people are going to be hyped up, and it's not every day you get to host a decent Power 5 opponent at your own house. So that'll be a fun one to watch. Unfortunately, after that, I'm going to predict a loss here at Houston. I know a lot of people disagree with this, saying they're in the American Athletic. Houston lost Greg Ward Jr. They lost Tom Herman. But they returned 15 starters. Major Applewhite is now the head coach. They promoted from within, so he still has connections with all the players. Those 15 returning starters are back. It's not like he had to come in and start a new scheme or anything. And their quarterback, if you remember, is Kyle Allen, the Texas A&M transfer quarterback. Sat out last year. Now he's at the head of Houston. I think he's going to be able to play very well there. We saw what he could do in the SEC. Wasn't spectacular, but did put up some decent numbers. I think he's going to put up some even better numbers against weaker opponents in the American Athletic. It's at Houston. I think this is a trap game. If Houston's offense can put up some points and Texas Tech's defense is not where it needs to be, I don't think they're going to be able to get the win. I think they're going to lose at Houston. I think that'd be a pretty minor upset. And then Oklahoma State at home. Thankfully, they get this game at home. Oklahoma State, once again, has a very explosive offense with Mason Rudolph at the helm. So they're playing some pretty good quarterbacks back-to-back here. And as I'm going to say repeatedly throughout this video, this season for Texas Tech relies on the defense. I have complete faith in their offense, and I know what they are capable of and the amount of points they get scored. But it's the defense that really lost them games last year. So this is one of those games where I think they could hang with Oklahoma State for a while if the defense is playing well, but if the defense doesn't show up, it could get ugly. I'm going to project another loss for them to Oklahoma State. And that's not just based solely on the poor performance from their defense. I really do think Oklahoma State's the better team and could make a potential college football playoff run, but definitely a run to the Big 12 championship game. Then they traveled to Kansas. David Beatty, who I think is building something at Kansas, he's going to get there. Hasn't had a good year in his first 2 years, but he's going to get there. They're better on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think they'll be good enough to stop this explosive Texas Tech offense, though. I think they'll snap that 2-game losing streak with a win at Kansas. Then they travel to West Virginia, another decent offensive team. They're going to be led by a bunch of junior college transfers, but most importantly, they're led by quarterback Will Grier, another SEC transfer from Florida. I think Will Grier is going to be the kind of the factor in this one, the main factor in this. I think with it being on the road at West Virginia, them having a better offense in terms of just balance, I think they're going to be able to chew up some of the clock over Texas Tech, and I think West Virginia's defense, will end up, even though they don't have as many starters back, will be able to stop Texas Tech. So they've lost 3 out of their last 4. Not good for them. Then they get Iowa State at home. Luckily, a good break there. Matt Campbell at Iowa State is definitely building something. I think Iowa State and Kansas will eventually both see themselves rise out of the Big 12 cellar fairly soon. I think both those young coaches are getting these teams where they need to be. Remember, last year, Texas Tech lost to Iowa State, even though it was on the road, 66-10. So let that sink in. 66-10. That's kind of embarrassing from an Iowa State team that is very dangerous at home, as I've said before, and is getting better, but it should never have been that bad, 56 points. With it being at home this season, though, with Texas Tech still being a somewhat decent team, I'm going to give them the win over the Cyclones. I don't think the Cyclones will be able to go on the road and defeat the Red Raiders, and also that game was late in the season when neither team, Texas Tech was playing for a bowl berth, but Iowa State was just playing for pride, and they really took advantage of that. And then the schedule gets very tough towards the end. If they want to make a bowl, they're going to have to win. I have them picked to win 4 of their first 7. I think they really need to win 5, personally. But they play at Oklahoma on the 28th. Another very tough game for their defense. Oklahoma, led by Baker Mayfield, a very potential Heisman candidate there. I don't see them taking any step down, even after the Bob Stoops retirement. Resignation, like I said, whatever you want to call it, at Oklahoma does not look good for the Red Raiders. Kansas State and Baylor. Baylor, as I've said before, is on the at a neutral site in Arlington, Texas. We'll start with Kansas State, though. They get them at home. This could be a win for Texas Tech. I'm predicting a loss right now, but this is one of those games that could play another huge factor in whether or not they make a bowl game. And I think they know what's at stake in this Kansas State game. Right now, I'm going to project a loss because Kansas State, I think, has more experience. I think in terms of them having a dual-threat quarterback, that could hurt Texas Tech's defense. And if Texas Tech's defense shows me something in these first 3 weeks of the season, then I'll be thinking completely different. But as of right now, I don't have a lot of faith in their defense. I think Jesse Ertz might be able to run all over them. Bill Snyder's going to have his team ready. I'm going to get Texas Tech another loss here. But I'm going to have them bounce back and beat Baylor at Arlington, Texas. This really does come down to just total offense overall in general. I think Baylor's defense is a little bit better than Texas Tech, but Texas Tech's offense is definitely better than Baylor's offense, and Baylor's led by first-year head coach Matt Rhule, who's trying to change what their offense is, change their identity. I don't think that this is going to be a horrible game for Texas Tech. They did defeat Baylor last year at the same location, so I think they'll get another win over the Bears. And then, so they're at 5 wins right now. They're 1 win away. They got a home game and a road game against 2 very good teams. 1 win away from getting to a bowl game, maybe saving Cliff Kingsbury's job. TCU, led by 17 returning starters, don't feel too confident in this one, even though it's at home. I know they gave TCU a scare a few years ago when TCU had that really good season. But with it being at home, with TCU, I think having another great season this year, getting back to 9 wins, maybe 10 wins, I don't think Texas Tech's going to be able to stop them. TCU's offense is going to be way too explosive. And like I said, Texas Tech, I know they're going to put up the points. The problem is just going to be their defense, and I don't think they're going to have enough to stop Kenny Hill and the Horned Frogs, even though it's at home. So it's going to come down to this Texas game. It's on the road. This is make or break for the Red Raiders if they want to get to a bowl or not. And unfortunately for them, I do not see them going on the road and defeating the Longhorns. I believe this game's on Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving, and I'm not going to give them the win over the Longhorns. Tom Herman and Shane Buechele on offense, too much. He's an offensive-minded coach. He's going to get this team where they need to be. They're going to be dangerous on offense, and they have a much better defense with 10 returning starters. Texas football, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people this season. And for Texas Tech, I'm going to give them a 5-7 record for the second straight year. I know that might be frustrating to see. I know a lot of people might disagree with that. And I know they have the potential to maybe get to a bowl game if they can beat the Houston game. I know I might get some negative feedback from that. They could beat Houston, and they could beat Kansas State. I see those as the only potential games that they could potentially win that I had picked as losses. So I'm picking them at 5-7. I could see them getting to 6-6 just barely. But right now I see them falling just short, and Cliff Kingsbury's job is going to be in major jeopardy. That'll be a major storyline if this happens. So keep an eye on the Red Raiders, especially in the offseason, see if they can get back to a bowl game for the first time since 2015. And please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and please continue to share our videos as we get near to the end of our Big 12 football predictions. And we'll see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.